You know, it's pretty wild how a conflict in just one corner of the world can send these massive shockwaves through our entire global energy system. So today we're going to trace that domino effect, all the way from a single critical waterway to, well, the gas pump right in your neighborhood. And believe me, this isn't some hypothetical. It's happening right now.
So let's just ask the question straight up. What really happens when one of the planet's most vital oil arteries gets threatened? Well, it's not pretty. You've got financial markets that just panic, supply chains grind to a halt, and yeah, the price you pay for energy, it can absolutely skyrocket, seemingly overnight.
And that artery we're talking about? It's the Strait of Hormuz. For decades, this incredibly narrow waterway has been a flashpoint for geopolitical tension. And it's for one simple reason: the world's almost unshakable reliance on the oil that has to flow right through it.
Okay, so our story really begins in the Middle East, which is the epicenter of this whole crisis. This is ground zero. This is where that first domino is starting to teeter, and it's threatening a chain reaction that's going to be felt all across the globe.
So what is the Strait of Hormuz exactly? Well, think of it as the single most critical shipping lane connecting Middle Eastern oil producers to, well, the rest of us. It's like a global superhighway just for oil tankers. And if you get a traffic jam here, the entire world feels it, and they feel it almost instantly.
So the first domino to fall is over in Europe. Because it's so heavily dependent on this oil, the continent gets hit with that first wave of impact, and it's forcing governments to just scramble to figure out what to do.
And the responses are, all over the map. You've got Portugal promising relief at home while also joining an international coalition to secure the strait. The UK and France, they're focused on damage control, trying to shield their citizens from these soaring energy prices. And then there's Germany, striking a much more cautious, diplomatic tone, calling the whole conflict a mistake. But then, one country took a step that, honestly, nobody else had dared to. The very first country in the entire European Union to announce rationing. Yep, Slovenia. And let me tell you, this is a massive deal. It's a huge red flag that shows you just how incredibly severe these supply disruptions are getting.
This quote from the German foreign minister just captures the mood perfectly. The negotiations are still a fragile beginning, but at least they're a beginning. It kind of points to this tiny sliver of hope, but it's completely overshadowed by this deep, deep uncertainty.
And, a crisis like this forces huge policy reversals. The EU, they had a really firm plan to end their dependency on Russian oil. Well, they've now had to put that plan on the shelf indefinitely. I mean, it makes sense, right? With one major supply route threatened, they simply can't afford to voluntarily cut off another one.
But look, if Europe is feeling a wave of impact, then what Asia is facing is more like a tidal wave. The crisis hits even harder on the continent that is the most vulnerable to any disruption in Middle Eastern oil.
Just take a look at this number, 80%. That's it, just 80%. Let that sink in for a second before I tell you what it actually means. 80% of all oil leaving the Middle East goes directly to Asia. That single, staggering figure explains everything. It's why the fallout there has been so immediate and just so severe.
And the consequences on the ground, they are absolutely devastating. I mean, look at this. The Philippines, they've declared a national state of energy emergency. Over in Cambodia, local suppliers are literally planning to just stop distributing. They know shortages are coming. Japan is already cracking open its strategic reserves. And for everyday people, the price of diesel has doubled in some places. This is not a drill. This isn't some far-off theory. This is a real crisis unfolding right now.
So, what starts as physical shortages now spills over into the financial world. Let's take a look at the turbulence in the markets, the worldwide shock that's being created by this one regional conflict. This really captures the volatility perfectly. A single rumor, a whisper about peace talks, sent oil prices plummeting below $100 a barrel. But as soon as that little bit of optimism faded, boom, prices shot right back up to 114. The markets are just on a knife's edge. And it's not just oil prices. The shock is just ripping through the broader economy. European stock exchanges are nearing a 4-month low. So what started as an energy crisis has now turned into a full-blown economic crisis. So after seeing how a regional conflict can spark a global chain reaction, from shipping lanes to gas pumps all the way to stock markets, the future feels deeply uncertain. And the big question is, what comes next? So let's just do a quick recap of this whole domino effect. Step 1.
A conflict threatens a vital oil choke point. Step 2. European nations start to react with everything from rationing to diplomacy. Step 3. The highly dependent nations in Asia face real supply emergencies. And finally, Step 4. That instability rocks global financial markets.
And that brings us right back to the big, lingering question, doesn't it? Can this really fragile diplomacy actually pull us back from the brink, prevent the worst-case scenario? Or is the rationing that we're already seeing just the first small tremor before a much, much larger global crisis hits?